1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get pumped, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to
say what's cracking YouTube. It's your boy 16 to life. Yard down. So y'all already know what time it is, man. I'm back on my interviews. So starting off again with my interviews, I got a very, very special guest. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's up, YouTube? My name is William Brown. I'm a retired 32-year police officer with the Los Angeles Police Department.
All right. And so from what year did you start, and then what year did you end up retiring?
Well, I took the pledge on December 3rd, 1990, and I retired August 31st, 2022. And I had a long, fun, and exciting career.
Okay, that's what's up. So today we gonna interview him about his career and his knowledge and his experience and all those things. So I happened to meet William. I was at a Starbucks. We won't say in what city, but I was happened to be at a Starbucks. He looked at me. He was like, "Hey man, I know you from somewhere, you know." I think I said "Yard down" or something like that. Then he said, "Oh yeah, man, that's how I know you." So
that's right.
We started talking, and then during the course of the conversation, he let me know that he was a retired officer and stuff like that. So, he purchased some music from me, stayed in contact, and he said he'd be willing to give me an interview. So I think that it's going to be a very interesting interview, man.
That's
and so
right.
once again, like he said, he's from the Los Angeles area. So where did you grow up at, William?
Man, I grew up in the city of Compton. And I also claim Carson, California, man. Those were my two stomping grounds for the first 20 years of my life, at least, man. I could tell you where every bump and crack and on Wilmington, Central Avenue, and Avalon, man. I was always back and forth. You know, my family, they're from Compton. My mother's side, they were off of 139th and Central, and my father's side, they were off of 137th and Wilmington Avenue. My mom's side, they touched down in Compton, and I believe in 1953, and I don't recall the year my father's side touched down, but yeah, I'm a Compton baby, man.
and so, if you don't mind, what time period was you born? That way, that'll give us an idea, okay. What years you grew up and stuff like that.
Yeah, man, I was born in 1969. I'll have a birthday on Friday. I'll be 56 years old. Thank God. I was a teenager in 1980s LA, and if anyone grew up in 1980s LA, they knew how it was, man. And I was a square, so I was like everyone else, ducking and dodging, trying to stay out the way, and doing me.
And so for those of us, myself included, who may not be familiar with the LA area or the time period, what it was like, give us a better description of what life was like back then in Compton growing up.
Well, because of my my community and my environment, was gangs, and it was Crips and Bloods, especially if you were black. It was Crips and Bloods. You had to watch the colors you wore, and that was real. You couldn't wear certain colors in certain neighborhoods. And because I never gang banged in my life, and I was a square, and there's more like me, we were aware of our environment and what we could and could not do. And, unfortunately, colors. And it was real, man. Certain colors could actually get you killed. They could get you murdered out there in the street. And it's sad, but it's true. It's a reality.
And so what year do you think, or around what age did you become, just aware that with the gang problem and I can't wear this, I can't wear that. What age did you, first become aware of the gangs and all that stuff?
Well, Chill, I'll be honest, man. I'm going to say 11, 12 years old because I attended Elsie Gundo Elementary School in Compton. And, at an early age, we already knew, okay, I live over here, I have to wear this color, or I live over there and I can't wear that color. And the funny part about my old elementary school, it was kind of right on the border, man. And at our age, we all knew that, on the west side of the school, there was the West Side Pyrus, which is a blood gang. And on the east side of the school, where my father's side lived, they were Crips, the original front hood Compton Crips. And it's funny. What's that brother's name? He's an OG from over there, Brother Bam. I actually went to school with his little brother.
Oh,
Kelsey
okay.
Thunder Elementary School, man. So we were aware of that at an early age. And what really convinced me that it was for real is, I think it was my 5th or 6th grade year. There was an actual murder behind my elementary school, man. We
Wow.
actually heard the gunshots. We all hit the floor. I remember my teacher, Miss Morgan, she's in the corner screaming, telling a bunch of little kids to close the door, close the door, close the door. But man, we were underneath the desk. We're listening to the gunshots.
Right.
And when the smoke cleared, there was a body and he was dead. And the rumor was at that time that he was a Crip. He was a Crip, So that's when the reality really set in for me as far as gangs were concerned, because to that point, and at our age, we all understood, the colors, don't wear this, you can't wear that. But when that happened, that's when the reality set in for me.
Right. And now, by you saying that you was a square and you didn't partake in that type of activity, can you recall a certain age where things seem to just get really bad? Times got worse than others, or is there a moment like that for you?
Yes. Your teenage years, especially for the guys, man, you grow up in that environment, and those same gangbangers that you see out in your neighborhood and in your street, the reality is we actually grew up with these guys. These guys, we all used to be friends, but we all decided to go our own separate ways, But as far as, becoming a teenager and growing up, that's when you really had to be aware of where you were going and really what colors you were wearing, because, as square as I was, as square as I was, man, I got caught slipping several times, and thank God nothing ever happened to me.
And so back then, okay, so let's speak briefly of your own neighborhood, of the neighborhood that you grew up in, by you being a, as we call it, square, non-affiliate, or for those who are not familiar with those terms, a person who doesn't gangbang. What was it like for you walking through your area, being familiar with the gang members from your area? Were you not bothered and given a pass, or did they try to press you and get you to join the gang?
No, not in my area. None of my areas were like that. To me, that was a choice you made on your own. If you were going to go hang out with those guys that's sitting in the park, or you were going to, it was a choice. It was a choice. I was never forced. And if you're in your own neighborhood, you're pretty much safe, because those guys that used to be your friends, the guys you played in the sandbox with, the guys you played sports with, they know who you are. You're just not gangbanging. Right. So you're pretty safe in your own neighborhood. The problem is, like I said, 1980s LA, I was a teenager, so I wanted to get out and explore.
Right.
And I wanted to chase the girls like everyone else. So you start going to these different parties in different neighborhoods in different parts of the city. And sometimes you're okay, and other times people want to know where you're from. And God forbid if you're wearing the wrong color. And it goes beyond color, chill. It's your attitude, the way you carry yourself. That's the thing about gangs in Los Angeles. It's not just about color, man. It's a lifestyle. The type of car you drive, the type of music you listen to, the way you dress, the words that you use, the way you walk, the way you stand. That will identify you as a gang member, and that will attract the attention of other gang members.
And it's funny that you said that, right? Because actually that was a segue into my next question. Let's talk about what I like to call traditional gangbanging, which definitely was prevalent back in those times, where, like you said, a certain style of clothing, a certain style of car, the cars you drove, all that. So what was traditional gangbanging like back in those days?
Traditional gangbanging, these guys were wearing the khaki suits. If you were a Crip, you were displaying your blue rag. It was either in your pocket or somewhere on your body, wrapped around your head, but you were definitely wearing your colors, and you were showing off your colors. The shoestrings, everything, Same with the Bloods, they were sporting their colors. They had the red rag. They were wearing the khaki suits. They would have that rag tied around their head or hanging out their back pocket, but it was somewhere on their bodies. So they wanted you to know who they were and where they were from.
And so even though you said you didn't gang bang, and so you avoided dressing like that, because I'm sure, once you got in your high school years, you were extremely familiar with
Yes.
what was safe to wear and what was not safe. By you being a non-affiliate and going to these parties sometimes in different neighborhoods, did people still try to confront you? I mean, because back then, like you say, it was obvious who the gangbangers were and who wasn't. But did occasionally you get, pressed for not being known in whatever area that you was in?
Well, I'll give you a story, Chill. And this is kind of funny, but it really went down, man. Back in the 80s, I believe McDonald's used to stay open, late. They would keep their lobby late.
Right.
And I had been hanging out with a friend of mine, and I was already warned I shouldn't really be hanging out with him, but he was kind of like me. He was a square. We were just out there, chasing the girls and trying to have a good time.
Right.
And 80s, hey man, I had the brand new bomber jacket on with the real fur. Had the Puma with the fat suit shoelaces, man.
Right.
My buddy, back in the day, man, he was wearing all the gold chains and the Gucci watch and all of that, So we thought we was fresh to death. So anyway, we were coming out of LA. So we stopped in Compton, man. And if you're from Compton, you know where this McDonald's is. It's on Long Beach. It's the South Side Compton Crips. So anyway, when we get out the car and park, we walk in, and this little short cat, he's talking to a security guard in there. So we grab our food. We sit down at the booth like two suckers. And just while we're sitting there talking and eating our food, just like in the movies, man, these cats come pulling up in a raggedy 64 Chevy. And just like I said, man, khaki suits, blue rags everywhere. It was 4 of them. They were bigger and older than we were. So when they all walk into McDonald's, they start talking to the short cat that was talking to the security guard. So then they walk over to us. Now the little short dude was like, what set you mofos from, blah, 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 this Southside Compton Crip, yada, 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 right? So we stuck. We can't run. We can't even fight our way out of this one. We are stuck. None of us are wearing the colors.
Right.
We're neutral as we can be because we both have that understanding. So I look over at the cat and I say, hey, man, I don't gang bang. We don't gang bang. And one of the dudes in the back said, hey, man, stall them little dudes out. He really said the N-word. He said, stall them little N-words out.
Right.
So, man, like the military, they did this about-face turn. They start walking back to the front of the restaurant, Chill. And then out the blue, my buddy, to this day, I don't know what he said, man, but he said something to these cats, man. He said something. It's just like the military. Those cats turned back around, came right back to our booth, man. Now they on my buddy. They not really on me, but they on my buddy, man. I'm holding a Big Mac. Like I said, we look like two suckers, man, because we caught up. And he's on my buddy real tough. What you say, punk, blah, blah, blah. This Southside Compton Crip, yada, 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 yada. So it was like a Harry Houdini show, man. The dude snatched my buddy's watch off his wrist so fast, man. It was 1 minute it was there, the next minute it wasn't, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm saying, oh man, I guess I'm next, man. They about to make me come out my stuff, man. We about to get jacked in a major way. So he's still on my buddy. Nobody's looking at me. My buddy had all his gold wrapped around his neck. What you gonna do about it, punk? Bam! Snatched all his gold off his neck, Chill. All of it, man. I mean, it was all 1 minute it's there, the next minute it's gone. And he did it like bam, one snatch. What did my buddy do? Tears start rolling down his eyes. I said, oh man, I should have listened to my brother, right? I should have listened to my brother. Well, then he took his Big Mac, man, and just smushed it in his face. What you gonna do about it, punk? I'm sitting there, man. I'm frozen, man, because I'm like, I'm next. I know I'm next. They got us. Man, them cats turned around, walked out the store, hopped back in the Chevy, got in the wind. Fast as they got out the parking lot, the faster we got out the parking lot, man. We got back on the 91. We was out of there, man.
So on the ride home,
Oh,
what was your buddy talking about?
oh man, he was crying, talking about he gonna get this, he gonna get that, man. Hey, chill. All I could think about was my brother, man. My brother said, man, quit hanging out with homeboy. I said, man, he wasn't into the gang banging. And I'm
Right,
like, oh, I'm gonna hang out, he cool. We're gonna go here, we're gonna go there. So that's that's one of the times I got caught slipping.
right.
I mean, just it was 1980s LA, man. Then went to another party over in Fruittown Brim over there by USC. Suppose same thing. I'm with some friends of mine, going to check out the ladies. But man, we pull up, man. These cats are standing out front, man, and they just staring us down. And one of the dudes said, "Come here right quick." I'm like, oh, no. I just kept it. I kept on pushing, chill. I said, man, I'm not about to get punched in my face, pulled out my car, and get my ass kicked. It ain't happening. So, so it was all kind of little things, man, But I'm not a gangbanger. Never was. Like I said, I was a square. So I wasn't about to get into any confrontation over no
Right.
gang stuff because that's what LA was. It was just gang infested,
Uh-huh.
and
And
really, and it still is.
right. And so by that time, I'm pretty sure the shootings and all that stuff had really ramped up, right?
The shootings, yes, man, because these guys were selling dope like crazy. Like I said, the cocaine, the rocks, these young cats were coming to school. They had money in their pockets, and they're not just laying each other down with 38s, man. These cats got AK-47s and Uzis, and it's real. They really had these type of guns, man. So, back then, the police was jacking everybody. LAPD crash, the deputies, OSS, Operation Safe Street. I mean, they were jacking everybody, And, I didn't like it because I was a teenager. But once I got on the job, became a police officer, I definitely understood. They don't know who's who, and they're trying to figure it out, because it was really that bad in 1980s LA. I had completely stopped going to house parties. House parties got too dangerous because now every party you go to, someone's getting shot up or houses are getting shot up. So, I had to give up on that.
And so let me ask you, what was life like before the influx of crack cocaine hit Los Angeles, and then what was it like after? When did you start noticing, like you said, guys who you went to school with maybe 1 year, and then the next year they come into school with, with the Turkish chains, the Adidas with the fat strings, the bomber coats or whatever they was wearing back then. When did you notice, the big change in how it affected the economy, I guess, in the urban cities?
To me, it happened in the early 80s, man. Like I said, these guys, everybody who was a tough guy, Crip or blood, it didn't matter. Everybody wanted to play the baller. Everybody wanted to appear to be the big dope dealer. And some of those guys really were, So back then, everybody had the pager and the big fat Turkish chains and everything, So,
Right.
and everybody was trying to play that part, And but these guys were really making some money out there. They were really making money, man. New cars, coming to school with, the fresh gear like we all wanted to have,
Right.
and that's what it was. But then it was just the gang banging, man. The gang banging just got crazy in the 80s. Everybody was shooting everybody, and it wasn't just about gangs anymore. It was more, okay, I'm gonna sell drugs over here. You can't sell drugs over here anymore.
Right.
It's that type of stuff.
And earlier you mentioned about the aggressive policing going on due to a lot of the gangbangers and stuff. And you said,
man, I told my kids, man, you know how many times I've been jacked. I'm a police officer. I'm a retired police officer. But I said back in 1980s LA, man, we had to get out the car. They had to search us. What gang we from? Man, I don't have my hands on plenty of hot hoods. I've been jacked. I've been searched, But like I said, I kept my mouth shut because you got to remember, back then, there were no cameras. There were no cameras. You couldn't
And
you couldn't open up your mouth and disrespect police officers. You couldn't do it. No way. Especially
and
especially in my neighborhood.
right. And by you being a non-affiliate back then, being young, knowing that you wasn't doing anything, how did you feel about being, snatched out of the car, made to put your hands on the hood, sit on the ground? That didn't make you have any ill feelings toward the police, or maybe not want to join the force?
No, I played the game because, being a police officer was a childhood fantasy of mine anyway, man. You know, just watching all the movies and, having that authority to drive fast and carry a gun, it was all fun to me. My
Right.
career from beginning to end was fun. I started my career when I was young, and I had fun. I met some outstanding police officers, man, of every race, creed, and color. I never had an issue. I never had racial issues on the department. Now, prior to me, of course, there were racial issues because I had a chance to talk to a bunch of old timers, and they told me how it was back then. But that was before my time,
Mhm.
But other than that, man, I work with some awesome officers, and I work with some true professionals.
So pretty much from a very young age, you already knew what you wanted to do in terms of a career.
Yes, man. So when I would get pulled out of my car, I would cooperate. If they told me, if they told me to sit down, I sat down. I never gave anybody problems. I always had my driver's license, but it was just those times, man. If it was more than just me in the car, and the police got behind us, and we so happened to have on a blue hat or a red hat, man, they were pulling us over, and we were
Right.
getting searched. And at that time, they were always looking for guns and dope because all those times I got pulled over and searched and asked to get out my car, I didn't get a ticket. I never once got a ticket. They're just looking for guns and dope, guns and dope, guns and dope, because it was that hot back then. Everybody wanted to be a drug dealer, man.
So how soon after you graduated did you join the academy and look to become an officer?
Well, 6 months. The academy was 6 months back then. And once you're done with those 6 months, you graduate. And then I was transferred, or what we call it, wheeled into my probationary division. And that was Southwest Division in South LA. I was in the police academy when the incident occurred with Rodney King. I was at Southwest Police Station when the riots occurred. And the
Oh,
funny part, not only was I working in the riots, I had to live in the riots because I was, at that time I was still living with my grandmother and my grandparents in the city of Compton. So I had to work in it, go home and sleep in it.
right.
But
So let
go
me
ahead,
ask
bro.
you a question. So seeing the Rodney King beating, getting ready to become a police officer, but also seeing him beat like that, did you feel it was racial? Did you feel it was unfair? Did you feel it was just? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, when you see someone get a beat down like that, of course you're going to feel some type of way about it. But what I was told, and I was told by several police officers of all race, creeds, and colors, it wasn't that he was black. I know some people will agree, but back in those days, if you ran from the police, that's what would happen to you. I seen old video footage of people just being pulled out of their cars through the windows, and getting beat down because they ran from the police. But once that incident occurred, the policy on the department changed, man. It changed completely. So basically, the old way of doing things was no more, and we were trained in the correct way to do things.
And so, even though you say you guys was trained in the correct way to do things, of course, you're going to have a lot of blacks, a lot of Mexicans, probably a lot of whites as well. Still feel that corruption was still rampant in the departments all across the country, not just in LA. Do you feel you saw any changes, or did you happen to still feel that the system was pretty much corrupted?
Well, you know what? Honestly, Chill, you will always have racism, and you will always have some form of corruption. But once you get caught, it's how that particular department deals with it. And we had this talk earlier. Even today in 2025, man, hey, nobody's playing, man. If you're a corrupt police officer, not only will they fire you, they will throw your ass in a federal penitentiary.
Right.
They will throw you in a federal penitentiary. So you can't get away with that crap that they got away with, 40, 50 years ago. No, everyone out here is walking around with an iPhone camera. The police officers have the cameras attached to them. There are cameras everywhere. So you can't get away with that crap, man.
Uh-huh.
And believe me, they will throw your ass in a federal penitentiary. And and I know that cops, we don't do quite well in prison at all.
Right.
So you can go out there and play those games if you want to, but I promise you that's where you will end up, in a federal penitentiary. So word to the wise, don't do it.
And so if you can recall, when was your first day that you officially started as an officer?
Actually, my very first assignment, I was assigned to the Desert Storm Parade. That was my very first assignment, the Desert Storm Parade. Basically, I stood in between two of my training officers and basically just watched the parade and kept the crowd away.
Uh-huh.
But when I reported to my division, I was walking through the hall, young. I think I was about 160 pounds, looking like Urkel in a uniform. And I had several black officers approach me, and it was weird how it happened, man. It's like I'm standing there, and the next minute, I'm standing in the center of these black officers, and they have a circle around me. They all introduced themselves to me, every last one of them. And they told me if I have any problems, if I have any issues, let one of them know. And I said, thank you, sir. And it was weird. It's like they were there and then they all disappeared. Because prior to me getting to that particular division, I guess there had been some racial issues. I don't know, never got into the details, but there had been some sort of racial incident there. Mm. Now, you have to remember at that time, everyone was heated because of the Rodney King incident.
Right.
So everyone was heated and people were looking at it as racial. Some people were looking at it like, oh, he was just a guy who kind of got his butt kicked because he was doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing. But you know how the majority is. The majority will look at it as he was just another black man who got beat down by a bunch of white cops. And that's the way people looked at it.
Do you think the Rodney King incident caused or created any tension among officers, between the black and the white officers?
Oh, of course it was. Of course, it wasn't blatant, but of course it was. And me being a young police officer and trying to learn a job, like I said, I worked with some cops, and they were black, white, Asian, and Latino, male, female, and I got treated fair. I didn't feel like at any point during my probationary period I was being discriminated against. Mm-hmm. I felt comfortable because I already knew the area. I knew the area.
Right.
I knew what I was patrolling.
And so, how long had you been working before you got into a serious incident that made you realize just how dangerous the job was?
Well, working South LA at that time, the gangs were out of control, man. And I'll give you the breakdown of the gangs in my area that we were working at the time. Okay. We were working the Rolling 40 Crips. We were working the Harlem 30 Crips, which is to the north. The Neighborhood Bloods, the 20s. The Fruittown Brims. And if you go a little bit south, then we were working the Black P-Stones over in Lower Baldwin Hills, which is known, everyone from South LA knows it as the jungle. We were working those areas, and all of those gangs, and I mean every last one of those gangs, were active. And then of course we had the Hispanic gangs in the area. We had the Harpies. We had I believe we had 18th Street. I think we had some MS, some Mata Salvatrucha, and I think we had a Mexican gang called the Drifters. I'm not sure, but I can't remember. But all of those gangs were active, man, and they were doing drive-bys on each other. And I remember heading into the station, and I'm on Dinker, south on Dinker from Expo, I believe. And I remember these guys jumping out in the street, flagging us down because one of their buddies had got shot. And we walk up to the car, and this guy's over in the passenger seat with a bullet hole in his chest. I requested a paramedic while my partner was just trying to keep him alive, man. And it was blood everywhere. Now, I can give you tons of stories like that, but that was probably one of the first ones that I said, okay, yeah, you know, this job is for real. This job is dangerous. If you're not careful, you will get taken out.
And so back then, for those who may be older and who may remember, what you're referring to South LA back then, that was called South Central, right?
South Central, yes. They called it South Central.
And for those of us, once again, who are not from the Los Angeles area, explain to the viewer sometimes how close one gang can be to the next.
Oh, man. It could be blocks away. It could be right across the street. It could be around the corner. The gangs in LA and Compton and all around the city, they are very, very close. There's some sections in the city where gangs are just, you know, right around the corner from each other. You know, right. It's just, you know, I mean, some neighborhoods are bigger than other neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods are so big that they have different cliques in their neighborhood. That's how big some of the neighborhoods are. But then you have other neighborhoods that are just really small, and the gangs are stacked on top of each other. And the black gangs, if you live in South LA, Compton, Watts, you know, even parts of Carson, you know, down in Long Beach, you know, all down there, the black gangs and the Latino gangs or the Mexican gangs, they've shared neighborhoods for decades, for years.
And so initially, and in this period that you're speaking of, then there was no or very little friction between the black and the Mexican gangs, right?
When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, I don't recall any friction between the black gangs and the Mexican gangs. I don't recall any friction between the two gangs. I graduated from Banning High School in 1987. And that's down in Wilmington, California. It's down in the harbor area. And I know the two big gangs down there are the East Side Wilmas and the West Side Wilmas, East Side Wilmington, West Side Wilmington. And in both of those neighborhoods, you had two black gangs. They were both blood gangs. You had the Ghost Town or East Side Payne. They were on the East Side, surrounded by the East Side Wilmington or Wilmas. And then you had the Waterfront Pyrus over there on the West Side, and they're surrounded by West Side Wilmington. And I never heard of those guys beefing with each other. And I never heard of the Mexican gangs beefing with any of the black gangs in South LA. But I'll tell you, in my opinion, about 1993, all of that changed. All of it changed.
And so why do you think, what was the reason for the change?
Well, I would say that those two organizations, well, I'll say that one organization that that represents the Mexican gangs in Southern California, that one particular organization, the intel that we had and what we knew was they had put a green light on all black gangs. They put a green light on all black gangs. And they even went as far as saying, hey, if you have black members in your gang, because yes, there are Mexican gangs who did have who had black members. They had black members in their gang. They were ordered to kick all those guys out, and it was basically on with the black gangs, the Crips and the Bloods. Why?
And let me interrupt, and I hate to interrupt right there, but it's funny that you say that, right? Because maybe 2 days ago, I was watching a YouTube channel. I can't remember the specific gang, but it was a person had left a comment in the comment section, and he was saying that they had a few blacks in their gang, then they got the order to kick all the black dudes out of the gang. And actually, that was the first time that I had heard that.
Yeah, it was true. I think we had an incident before I left Southwest. There was a harpy gang, a black harpy. And he was running around with he was in the Mexican gang. He was a black harpy gang member, and I think he had gotten murdered. Now, I don't know if it was behind that or it was behind some other drama, but he had gotten murdered. But Yeah, and that was nothing new, especially when you're talking about cities like, South LA, Compton, Watts. That was nothing new to have blacks and Latinos in the same gangs, especially blacks in the Mexican gangs. That was nothing new.
And so you said now there was an order for all the Mexican gangs to basically go to war with the black gangs.
They were ordered to go to war with the black gangs. No more drive-bys. If they had an issue with anyone, they were ordered to walk up. And this happened when I had transferred to Central Traffic Division, and I was in a completely different bureau. And where I worked in '93 was the whole bureau was predominantly Hispanic, Mexican, Salvadorian, Guatemalan, but it was more blacks. I'm sorry, there were more Mexican gangs than there were black gangs. All the black gangs in Central Bureau, they were pretty much located south of the 10 freeway, and they were located on the east side, or what you want to call the low bottoms, east of the 110 freeway. So, and it was weird because now the low bottoms has always been black and Mexican gangs, and like I said, they've always shared the neighborhood. But because I worked a traffic division, or because I was assigned to collision investigation, I had access to the whole bureau. And what I mean by that, each bureau is split into divisions. So I wasn't just secluded into one division. I had the whole bureau. And if I was in a location like Northeast LA, where there are no black gangs, or Boyle Heights, no black gangs, it was weird because up there, they were following the order, no drive-bys. And it was crazy because it was really quiet. I worked morning watch my whole career. So I was out at night and it was really quiet. But if you're listening to the radio and you're listening to what's going on in South LA or the low bottoms, those guys are going to war, man. They're doing drive-bys on each other 24/7 because, they're so close together. They're so close together.
And when you say they, who are you specifically referring to?
Crips and Bloods and the Mexican gangs.
Uh-huh.
Crips and Bloods and the Mexican gangs. Because that's where all the black gangs were located in my bureau. And you had then you kind of had, I wouldn't call it, well, I guess you could call it a neutral zone in downtown LA where Skid Row, all these guys would get together and that's where they would sell their drugs. So that was kind of looked at as a neutral zone, Crips and Bloods really they would go down there to sell their drugs, but they didn't really fight each other. And I don't even think the Mexican gangs would, try and fight or cause any problems down there because, okay, this is our neutral spot where we all make money. But other parts of the city, Pico Union, where there were no black gangs, quiet, no more drive-bys, But like I said, South LA, the low bottoms, east of the 110 freeway, those guys were going at it, man. They were going at it.
And so
back and forth.
Once the directive came down, then you're saying that everything on the streets just got really ramped up in regards to the gangs.
Right, it got ramped up, and that was all over the city. It wasn't just South LA. You're talking about different parts of the city, out in the valley, San Fernando Valley, San Gabriel Valley.
Uh-huh.
But most of the black gangs in the city, they're really concentrated in South LA, Watts, Compton, Long Beach, Carson. But majority of the city, man, is pretty much Mexican gangs,
Right.
And they have that structure from that organization that's inside the penitentiary.
Uh-huh.
And those guys, and I'll be honest, man, when I first started doing my research on that organization, I didn't think they really had that much influence or had that much power, man. And I'm like, well, what can they really control on the outside if they're in the inside? But they showed me something different. They do have that much control. and they've been around and they've been around from the research I've done, and it's out there. They've been around since the 1957. They do have that much influence, and these guys know that if they don't do what they're told, they'll have problems when they hit the county jail or the California Department of Corrections, and they're serious about it.
And so let me ask you a little bit about your experience on the structure of black gangs. Were they well organized, or were they more like a loose knit collective?
You know, Crips and Bloods, Crips and Bloods have always, in my opinion, they've been a very loose knit structure. They have different factions of the Crips. The Crips are bigger than the Bloods, of course. And the Crips, in my opinion, they've always decided who they're going to get along with, who they're not going to get along with. You know, the Bloods, when I was growing up, they were always together until what, I don't know, maybe the last 20 years where you started hearing about Bloods fighting Bloods. You never heard about Pyrus fighting Pyrus and, you know, Bloods fighting Bloods. That was unheard of. That was an issue with the Crips. You know, the Bloods were pretty much together, but both gangs were always loosely structured. Those guys were more like get off where you get mad at, you know.
Right. Now, I know that among a lot of, I want to say, gang members and a lot of individuals who have also went to prison, there is a well-known rumor that a lot of this beef between the blacks and the Mexicans started between shady business dealings, specifically behind a black gang. Do you think that was any part of the directive to have a green light on the blacks?
Honestly, man, it could have been a number of things. That, to me, is probably the primary thing right there when you're talking about money and drugs. That's probably what really set it off. But in my opinion, all this was inside of the prisons. And then it kind of just trickled out into the streets, unfortunately.
Right.
And it was so bad. And this was the sad part, Chill. It was so bad that it started affecting the schools. You know, you got high schools in the area, and you got the blacks over there, and you got the Mexican kids over there, and they're fighting each other. And you know, the sad part is most of these kids are not even in gangs. So what would they have to do with that? And that's where you can see it just got racial. Now it's not about the gangs anymore. It's about, oh, you're black and I'm Mexican and I can't, you know, I got to be over there. You got to be over here. Just like the structure they would have in a penitentiary, man. I'm like, it's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
You know?
And so from your opinion of a former officer who worked the street for years, you know, because I get a lot of comments on my YouTube page from people who live outside of California, and they seem to get the impression that one particular race gives the other race hell. Is that your experience, or?
Man, first of all, I'll blame it on the gang members. Not all the blacks in Southern California and not all the Mexicans in Southern California are at each other's throats racially. You know, I've been here all my life. I'll be 56 years old. All my friends, the two people that I love and respect the most are my black brothers and my Mexicans, because we grew up together. We went to school together. We were listening to everything else. We were listening to NWA together. Too Short, Two Live Crew. We were doing it all together. And the only thing and what ruined that was the gangs. But all of us, you know, we're not out here just hating on each other and killing each other. It's the gangs. And it all started from within California Department of Correction, because they've always had that structure where everyone has to be with their own. But out here, no. I've never had a problem going to Boyle Heights, which is 99.99% Mexican American. The SVG, San Gabriel Valley, never had an issue out there. You know, there's been times where I've been the only black man, and I've never had an issue. Everybody treated me cool. I never had to worry about someone, you know, doing anything to me. But I'm not a gang member. But if you're a gang member and other gang members happen to see you, well, you know what they're going to do, you know, and it goes both ways. And it's sad, but it's true.
And you know, suddenly a question just popped into my head out of nowhere. Let me ask you, did you ever patrol Crenshaw when Crenshaw was the strip for the low riders on Sunday nights and everybody would go there and you know, be in their low riders and stuff?
Crenshaw wasn't in my area. That was more South Bureau.
Okay.
Well, actually, when I was on probation, we would be out there, you know, because Crenshaw did run through my area at the time. But once I transferred to Central Bureau, no. But like I said, 1980s LA, I was a teenager, and I was on Crenshaw like everyone else, trying to check out the girls. so you know, yes, I was out there, and Crenshaw has always been the cruising spot.
Right. And so let me ask you, here's another question that just popped into my head. I think that they don't get mentioned as much. Are there any or a large amount of Asian gangs in LA? And if so, did you ever encounter any?
I never encountered any in my bureau. You know, we of course we had well, let me take that back. When I first wheeled into Central Bureau, there were I believe they were Cambodians, and they were in the projects with the Pueblo Bishop Bloods, and I believe they were called the Asian Boys. And I think those guys are also blood affiliated, the Asian Boys, and they were in the Pueblo Bishop projects down there in the low bottoms.
Uh-huh.
But other than that, as far as the other Asian gangs, I think there was a Filipino gang in the Rampart area, and that's really about it. But they were always pretty low key and quiet compared to the black and the Mexican gangs. Now I know down in Long Beach, they have some pretty active Asian gangs. Now I've never worked Long Beach, but just, you know, going down there and hanging out all the time as a teenager, you know, they have some pretty active Asian gangs down there.
And let me ask you a quick question. So, does the summertime seem to amp up the gang violence on the streets? And also, what two black gangs who were beefing with each other do you feel was the most violent beef that you happened to, you know, encounter during your patrol?
I think the most popular beef was, of course, the A-Trade gangsters and the Roller 60 Crips. I mean, that beef right there was so big and so popular. That's where you get the neighborhood car and the gangster car. I mean, that beef was so big and so popular. It basically forced all the other black Crip gangs to pick a side. Basically, okay, are you a neighborhood Crip or are you a gangster Crip? You know, which one are you? And you know how long that beef lasted.
And did you happen to patrol that area?
Now, that area, no, I didn't patrol it because that was all south of my of where I was working. My main areas when I was on probation at Southwest, like I said, we were pretty much busy dealing with the Rolling 40s and the P-Stones and in the 30s and the 20s and the Fruit Towns, and then all the other Mexican gangs in between there. So we were busy dealing with them.
Mm-hmm. Now,
go
ahead.
But in my area, I think the two biggest were the 40s and the Black P-Stones. It seemed like they were always going at it. And if you went north, it was so obvious that if there was a drive-by up north, it was always between the 30s and the 20s.
And so, how frequent were these gang shootings? Do you basically believe there was a nightly occurrence? Every night you guys could expect some gang-related shooting between these gangs?
Oh yeah, they were active. They were busy, especially on the weekends, especially summer nights. Yeah, these guys were active, man. They were active, very active.
And if you can recall, what is one of the more memorable scenes that you pulled up to with where the violence was extremely, you know, just higher than usual?
Well, you know, it's funny because, like I said, I was a collision investigator and I had access to the whole bureau and then some. And it's weird because sometimes we would get calls where, okay, you had a guy, you know, vehicle versus parked car, vehicle versus tree, vehicle versus pole, or whatever it was. and you get out and the guy is still slumped behind the wheel, and you
Uh-huh.
think, okay, as you're approaching, you think, okay, maybe he's drunk. And then when you get there, you find out he's been shot in the chest or he's been shot in the head. Now
Mm.
that accident turns into a homicide.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we've had some. I think the worst one I've ever actually rolled on, where we had a lot of bodies down, was these were two Mexican gangs, the Playboys and Florencia. And I think that night, about 8 Playboys got shot and they were down.
Right.
And so yeah, it could happen anytime, anywhere, in any part of the city.
And so, what has been your experience in arresting some of these gang members of all races? Do gang members more when they're arrested for these crimes? Do they more stick to the quote unquote code and silent, or do more of them talk, tell, and try to free their way through verbal admissions? I guess I would say.
Well, I'll tell you this. There's some snitching going on. It's a real live snitching going on. All these cats who believe that their homeboys are not snitching on them, yes, they are snitching on them. They are telling.
Hmm.
I've seen it. I've heard it. They are telling. All of them. All of them.
What
Crips, Bloods, the Hispanic gangs or Mexican gangs, they are all telling.
So, in your opinion, what percent of the gang members as a whole are telling?
You know what? You have the hardcore, and then you have the wannabes. And to me, more of the wannabes are telling. You know, the hardcore, they've already been there, done that. They've been to the penitentiary. They've been to county jail. And, they know the repercussions because they're so heavily involved in it. It's always the wannabes. It's always the guys that are, got their chest stuck out and they're trying to pretend like there's something. But once you throw those cuffs on them and they know that they're about to go to the county jail or that penitentiary, they start talking. They do it all the time.
So go ahead.
Go ahead, G.
So I was going to ask you, in general, what do they talk about the crime that they got arrested for? They volunteer information. I know who shot old boy last week. They just give up a plethora of stuff.
Yeah, they tell. Nobody wants to do your time. They're not going to do your time for you. They're going to snitch on you. They do it. And now, look, if they don't tell, if they don't tell the detectives, they'll tell the district attorney. Sometimes they even tell us.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to go to jail. They talk the talk. And it's a whole lot of them. And it's sad because today in 2025, these young guys, man, I mean, easy work. They make the detective's life easy. They make the DA's life easy. Man, these guys are recording themselves and they're posting it. They post their guns. They post their dope money. They post their, they post them standing there with the homies, throwing up their gang signs. It's easy. So these guys, when they get in there and they start talking about they're innocent, and like I said, I eat my cookies and drink my milk, and I don't bother anybody. I read my Bible, and then the detectives, they go on your Instagram, and there you are. You're standing there. You got your little gang sign. You got your little, you got your little Uzi in your hand or whatever. Flashing all your money. They got you. Easy work. Easy work.
They basically just leave a social media trail and play a big part in getting their own selves convicted.
Chill, they snitching on themselves, man. They create their own cases, man. They put themselves in the California Department of Correction, man. They do it. All of them. This whole generation, man.
Right.
Crips are doing it. Bloods are doing it. All the Mexican gangs are doing it. They can't help it. These phones right here, man. The phones, man, made everybody a snitch. You can't get away with nothing.
Right.
You can't get away with nothing.
And then you not to mention you have the individuals who will see a fight out in the street, record the fight, upload it to media. So
yes. I just watched a post where this kid, this one kid runs up to this guy's car. He starts talking all this crap. What's up? The guy comes out the other side of the car with some sort of assault rifle, shot the guy in the chest in front of God and country, man. In front of God and country. The kid goes down, he hops back in the car, and they all take off. I'm like, now how do you think you're going to get away with that?
Right.
They got you from all angles. And then plus, once they catch your homie, because they saw what car he got in, guess what he going to do? He going to snitch.
Yeah.
He's snitching. You just committed murder, man, with an assault rifle.
If you would have to give us an estimation out of all the decades that you worked, what decade was the worst in terms of gang fatalities, gang violence and stuff like that?
To me, it was the 90s. The 90s. I think the 90s, they were still on that old school gang bang, they were still on that, especially the Crips and the Bloods. They were still on that, and what I mean by that, the Crips and the Bloods, it was still business as usual for them. They were still doing drive-bys and, getting off, where they get mad at. I think the Mexican gangs, they were just as dangerous and deadly too, but it just seems like they had a little bit more structure, It would be quiet. It was weird because if you were working Highland Park or if you were in Boyle Heights and you heard something go down, it was a shooting. Somebody got laid down. Then over here, you will hear another shooting. Somebody gets laid down. Then it gets quiet. That's it. It's done. But like I said, if you're up north and you're listening to a radio down south, it's constantly going on 24/7. Those guys down there were busy. So I would say the 90s by far was probably the most dangerous decade for me as a police officer.
Right. Now, in your opinion, and when I ask this question, this is in relation to Crips, Bloods, or Mexican gangs. What were some of the more, I guess, dangerous areas or projects or places that, just really kind of maybe gave you the EBGBs that where you had to really be hyper vigilant? I know you had to pay attention everywhere, but were some spots either by design or whatever kind of more dangerous than others?
Well, based on where I was at, I mean, I don't like going into the projects because the projects are dangerous where you have the buildings and people can take pot shots from you in any direction. So you had your tactics and you had to keep your head on a swivel, meaning you have to keep looking around, and maybe going with an additional unit, or a couple of units. But I didn't like going into the hazard projects, but we had to, if I was down in the low bottoms, I wasn't too fond of going into the Pueblo Bishop projects either. Projects are just funny. You never know what's going down in the project. So I didn't really care for going into the projects, period.
Say what's cracking, YouTube. If you like that intro song that I use at the beginning of my videos, it's now available on a 10-song EP, and you can get it on digital download. Hit me up on Instagram at 16tolife, that's 16DALIFE, or you can email me at 16tolifemusic@gmail.com. Cash at me or Zelle me $20, and I'm going to shoot you the link for the digital download. Right now, check out a song from that EP. It's a 10-song EP, and this song I'm going to play for y'all is called I'd Rather Be a Square. I'm telling you, tap in with me, man, and get that digital link. I guess.
These niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playin' fair. They shoot at you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang bangin', I'd rather be a square. These niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playin' fair. They shoot at you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang bangin', I'd rather be a square. Yeah. I swear to God, the game is cold, homie.
What you mean?
I popped on a pussy ass nigga after he stole on me.
What happened next?
That nigga came to court and told on me.
Put that on something.
I sold my soul, homie. Called the highway patrol on me, plus the sheriffs and cops. He told him my name was Eric and I carried a Glock. Soon as you start blowing shots, them niggas going to tail. They'll have a meeting with the cops and then you going to jail. They'll tell him about the shooting, take him, show him his well. DA trying to see your cash, they gon' throw him on the nails. They wanna throw me up in the cell and have me with a L again. Back to strip searchers and guards, read my mail again. Have me far away in the bay, I'm talking Pelican. Eating cold ass soy burgers and warm gelatin. I'm far too intelligent to fall for that twice. Niggas yelling gang gang and ain't about that life. And they'll turn rat right in front of your face. Get you found guilty plus 100 years on the case. Your mama in the court with tears running all on her face. Her baby shackled feet, hands, and waist. Goddamn, these niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playing fair. They shoot at you, you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang banging, I'd rather be a square. These niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playing fair. They shoot at you, you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang banging, I'd rather be a square. Yeah, doing life's no joke. I been where the apes been. You ain't really bout that smoke. You a vape pen. Soon as they catch a joke in the feds on a state pen. That tough guy shit get shed quick like snake skin. Real and fake men can't exist together. I stay down, you turn snitch, so you a bitch forever. Imagine me snitch never, boy, I stuck to the code. You hit the county for a month, you said fucking and told. Soon as you heard your bitch Nicole was fucking all of your best friend, the news damn near killed you, nigga. Caved your chest in. You told about the murders that y'all did on the West End. Who was popping the burners and the one who said lesbian. Cooperated then, signed an affidavit. Felt your life was over, nigga, you was trying to save it. So you told on Antoine, LeBron, Marcus, and David. Came home and half your hood forgave it. Goddamn, these niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playing fair. They shoot at you, you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang banging, I'd rather be a square. These niggas ain't who they say they is, so beware. Fuck what they sayin', cause these cowards ain't playing fair. They shoot at you, you shoot at them, they snitch, and they don't care. Fuck gang banging, I'd rather be a square. Yeah.
Thank you.